Um, Back to Luigi. A New York judge on Tuesday dismissed two terror-related murder charges against Luigi Mangione, finding they are legally insufficient, though the 27-year-old still faces a count of second-degree murder in the killing of United Healthcare CEO. Well, here's the thing. All the other charges that they did, which I was going to try to say if, well, I'll read on. Well, so the terrorism charges were dismissed, and the second-degree murder, I'm like, well, sir, you did kill that boy. You did kill that man. So you should do time for that. However, the terrorism thing, I'm like, first of all, it wasn't like he pow-powed a multitude of people. That would be more or less teetering on terrorism. So I don't understand how you trying to treat somebody as a terror because a CEO was unalived. And we see, like, especially when you look at corporate media, politicians, that sort of thing, we already know which side they lean on in regards of um you know what side they lean on when it comes to who they want to protect. And they don't care about us, even though we're the ones who buy a lot of their products and all this other stuff. And look, like I said before, now if anybody was a terrorist, it was the people over there at United Healthcare with the amount of health situations that y'all were denying people. So that way they, when people were sick and didn't have the money to be able to pay for, be it their chemo, and you were denying a lot of things that they needed to be taken care of. This is why I said our healthcare system is trash in this country. Whereas it's like people have to be able to go bankrupt or pretty much damn near die in order because they can't afford to take care of whatever type of ailments they were going through. And yeah, maybe he comes from money, he's got a rich family, whatever the case is. That's not the point. The point of the matter is he's still a human being who even was going through whatever ailments he was going through, was not taken care of by United Healthcare CEO. So they don't give a damn what your um financial bracket is. A body is a body that they don't give two shits about. So that's why I feel like he did what he did. He was just at wit's end and was like, "You people are gonna learn that." And this is what I said about the consequences of Charlie Kirk. But we already know white people, y'all allergic. A lot of, not all of you, but some of you, you supporters of this foolishness. The ones who are all worrying about more or less a CEO life than regular people lives. It's funny how y'all always putting rich people over your own self. So you rather suffer, you rather die, you rather have all the ailments, you rather have nothing in your cupboard and in your entire existence, but you gonna tap dance for these rich folks who wouldn't spit on your ass if you was on fire. That I never understood. So anyway, he appeared in court on Tuesday as part of a pretrial court appearance for charges brought against him on December 4th, 2024. Damn, he been in jail that long? Of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione, who was pleaded not guilty to all state and federal charges against him, had his last state court appearance in February. Now, during the appearance, the terrorism charges, as I mentioned, were dropped, with Judge Gregory Carroll ruling the evidence as legally insufficient. Wasn't that one of them charges that dumbass Eric Adams was trying to push for? Because he's trying to show himself like he's a tough mayor. It's like, I can't wait to vote your ass out. But anyway, even though you're trailing last in the polls, anyway, I don't even. We're not even gonna get into New York politics, right? And though his lawyers, led by attorney Karen Freeman Agnafilo, wanted to have the state indictment entirely dismissed because of the simultaneous federal case against him, Carroll used any claim of double jeopardy is too premature. Now, Mangione's motion to delay the case was also denied. Pretrial hearings will begin on December 1st. Because I was wondering, I was like, I remember them saying that it was supposed to happen at the end of the year. Now, Carroll ruled the state prosecutors faced too much emphasis on the phrase revolutionary anarchism in Mangione's writings. Carroll writes, not only does this stretch the import of a two-word phrase beyond what it can carry, but it ignores other more explicit excerpts from defendants, writings in which he states that his goal is to spread a message and win public support about everything wrong with our health system. Therefore, the court finds that the people failed to establish an intent to influence or affect government. Carroll went on to talk about how difficult the word terrorism is to define and said he does not believe the employees of a company constitute a civilian population. He added, while the defendant was clearly expressing an animus towards United Healthcare and the healthcare industry generally. It does not follow what that his goal was to intimidate and coerce a civilian population, saying that yeah, there was no evidence presented of such a goal, which is true because I'm like, when you kill one person, I know it's like math may be some difficult for some of y'all, no shade, but math, killing one person is not a terrorist threat or a terrorist act. It has to be more than one. It has to be a multitude of people. If you go like, say for example, these mass shootings that have been happening in schools, that is a terroristic act. That is a homegrown terrorist type of situation. So that's what people need to be looking at instead of, oh, we're just going to call it terrorism because one person took out someone who is in a high profile job that benefits a corporation that doesn't want to pay taxes or whatever the case is, or pay to take care of people, or the ones that continue to suck money out of us, but don't want to give us the health care that we need. So all these little scams, all the things that the current administration is trying to make cuts so that way they get away with murder while we all die because we don't have the protection of the insurance companies to make sure that if something happens to me, that is covered by the insurance company that I'm buying into, by the way, from working. That these insurance companies that I'm putting money into, that money should be used to help me out if something happens. Isn't that why we buy into insurance? Or am I crazy? So they said intern the prosecution led by Joel Seidman? Yeah, Seidman has asked the judge to force Mangione's team to reveal whether they will be providing psychiatric evidence of any mental disease or defect he may have in pursuit of an insanity defense. I don't think they're trying to plead insanity, or are they? Because I didn't hear anything about that. I just feel like this is a situation where he was fed up with the system and decided because the government, who don't really help, I don't feel like the government's ever been in place to like help the people. We've always had to be the ones that move the needle in order to make change in the world. It's never been the government. The government just latches on because they want votes and they want to look like they're of the people. And maybe there are some people that really want to get out there and throw their fists in the air and wave it around like they just don't care and want to be of the, and help the people. But for the most part, it's always been us that have been at the us human beings that have been at the forefront of igniting revolutions when our back is up against the wall because we don't have nothing else to lose at this point. It's like, what's the thing we're gonna lose? Our lives. So um I totally feel like that's what that was. Y'all always want to be quick to jump on and be like, oh, was he going to use the insanity defense? I just feel like, yeah, he was at his wit's end. He was tired. He was in pain. The UFC wasn't doing anything. Or UHC wasn't doing what needed to be done to help him out with the insurance he had. And just because he comes from money doesn't necessarily mean that that his family was, you know, um, helping him out financially. We don't know what his whole situation was. Y'all all think that all birds of a feather flock together. So now inside the courtroom, as you can see, in the picture, in this new picture, full photo, he arrived in tan prison guards shackled. He was mostly quiet with his head down, occasionally speaking to members of his legal team. In contrast to his last state court appearance, he did not have a bulletproof vest. As he was let out, he glanced briefly at his supporters, excuse me, sitting in the back row. About 24 members of the public entered the courtroom to observe the hearing. Of course, most were women. With a handful of them wearing green, the color has become a symbol of support for Mangione, a reference to the Luigi character in Nintendo's Mario Brothers franchise. One woman who was in court dressed in a bright green leopard dress, not a leopard dress, with green socks and black heels looking like a damn leprechaun, spoke with Rolling Stone after the appearance. She asked to be identified as Lena NW and said that she had flown from LA and slept outside of the courthouse overnight. And girl, and nobody robbed you in order. That's a joke. We ain't crazy. We don't do stuff like that in New York anymore. The, the terrorism charges were dropped, so I was glad to hear that. But it's all still very scary and unusual for him to have both New York State and federal charges against him for the same crime. Because I feel like they're trying to make an example of him, and also they're trying to get the death penalty thrown on him too. because they want to set an example that any one of y'all that go out of line and go after a federal person or someone who works a federal job or someone who works in the medical industry or insurance, because it ain't about the medical industry, the insurance companies who sit and rob us blind unapologetically, then we're all going to be chastised for it. So they want to set an example with him. So they said one of the charges, yeah, as I was saying before, one of the charges in federal court makes him eligible for the death penalty. And because of this, his legal team is fighting to get his federal trial pulled ahead of the New York State trial date. During Mangione's federal court appearance in April, Friedman Agnafilo revealed that New York State prosecutors had told her they inadvertently listened to calls between Mangione and his legal team. Friedman Agnafilo also filed paperwork claiming that the state prosecution violated Mangione's rights under HIPAA by obtaining access to confidential, privileged information and his health insurance provider. On Tuesday, Carroll said that he has not made judgments about the legality of the Aetna subpoena, but he said state prosecutors cannot use anything from it. But still, how do y'all get access? Now, Agnafilo also criticized New York State prosecutors for publishing in filings excerpts from the notebook they say Mangione, used as a journal to plan Thompson's murder. The notebook was allegedly found in Mangione when he was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, because some snitching ass bitch went at a McDonald's and snitched on him. And I don't even think they got their reward. So you snitch for nothing. And this was 5 days after the shooting. In the filing with the notebook excerpts, state prosecutors argued that the terrorism charges against Mangione were appropriate because they claimed his intent was to violently broadcast a social and political message to the public at large, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So, oh, and they also said that they request the Pennsylvania court has requested he appear in person for firearms related charges on November 7th. Although Mangione is currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, his next federal court case date is set on December 5th in Manhattan. So he's dealing with charges in Pennsylvania because that's where they arrested him. He's also dealing with charges in New York because that's where they brought him over. Because I guess not I guess, that is where he committed the crime. So he's being charged in two different states for two different situations. Now, they also said that to correct themselves, because this story is from Rolling Stone, by the way. A previous version of the story stated that Mangione's New York State trial was expected to start December 1st. That is the date his pretrial hearings are scheduled to begin. So they said that the pretrial date hearing is on December 1st. His next federal court date is on December 5th in Manhattan. So free Luigi is all I'm gonna say about this. I get, I'm not condoning taking somebody's life, but on the other hand, I understand why he did what he did. It's the same thing I was saying about the whole Charlie Kirk situation. You can't be out here doing things to people, saying crazy things to people, radicalizing a group of people, and then when that person has been indoctrinated to the point where they're at their wits' end and their back is up against the wall, you cannot be surprised that someone uses violence as an answer instead of being combative with words. Everybody don't, some people just take it to the extreme, and it is what it is. It's just the circle of life and the way things are. I know a lot of times it may be hard for some people to compute this, but as someone who is a logical thinker and a critical thinker, sometimes this way the cookie crumbles. I'm not saying it was the right way he should have went about it, but maybe he felt that with that, taking it to that extreme, that it was going to wake up these damn insurance companies and for them to realize that y'all cannot be out here doing doing things to people and expecting not to be retaliated against in a violent manner. So I say all this to say, what do you think of this story on the latest on Luigi Mangione? I'll definitely be keeping you abreast of the story as it develops. Once we get closer to the trial date in December, I'll definitely be keeping abreast of the story. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.